Hello, it's me, John Gallagher Portero, and welcome to our first live stream here on the Bristol Longform Comedy YouTube channel. I am joined by Bristol Longform Comedy instructor. Alongside me is John McInnes. Hello, John.
Hello, it's me, John McInnes. I'm doing well. How are you, John?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. I'm glad that we're able to do this. It sucks being indoors the entire time during quarantine. It sucks not being able to watch live improv, and it sucks not being able to do it. So I'm glad that you're with me here today.
Hey, and I'm with you, gentle viewer. We're with all of you right now.
Damn right. So what are we going to be doing today? We thought it would be a nice idea just to give our opinions on, that means opinions, on improv. Just a little discussion about stuff that we enjoy, stuff that we're dealing with at the moment, and then we'll happily answer questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, so if you, like many people, watch us do improv and you're like, this part I don't like, but listening to them talk about improv, that's what this is for. If you're like more interested in them us
questions,
just in a second, that may have caused a technical hiccup that's fucked YouTube to some degree. Maybe, maybe not. Let me have a look at it. Oh wait, no, we're still working.
Oh good. You can still hear me, right?
I can hear and see you.
Yay! So we've both chosen a topic to just talk about, stuff that we enjoy. We've chosen one thing that we both enjoy. And for me, it's premise openings. So listening to like an opening or a monologue and then getting premise ideas, premise initiations from that. So already starting with somewhat of an idea of what you think the scene is going to be. What are you going to do, Nathan?
I also love premise initiation, but I decided that I wanted to talk a little bit about active choices in scenes. I think it's something that I tend to do quite a lot. And I think there's lots of different like applications of it. So I'm kind of just interested in our opinions on that. And I've got a bunch of opinions about premise initiations, of course.
I've heard you have so many opinions, and I'm a bit worried.
I mean, I'm a guy who likes having opinions.
Oh no! All right, so do you want to start with active choices?
Yeah, I guess. So, what is an active choice? It's kind of like just, to me, I guess, something in a scene that like makes things happen a little bit, I guess. I kind of like think of it in two different ways. One in terms of like game, that's like, oh, this is an active choice to like play a game rather than like talking about a game. And that happens a lot in scenes where like you start the scene, maybe it's an organic scene, you don't have an idea, but then in like finding a game organically, you come across something, and then you're like, oh, all of our ideas would kind of just be listing it. You kind of want to like play it where it's fun. So kind of like cut twos and like tags are very useful in making stuff like that happening. But another part about active choices that I think is equally as important maybe is like making choices in the base reality of the scene to just have something to do, is what I've heard some people describe it as, like rather than just like two people talking, like have almost like a, like if you had to like summarize like what the dramatic version of this scene would be, what would it be? I mean, like date like is kind of like useful, but like what date is it? Like have like just a little bit more like of an end point or a goal within the scene, so that as the scene's going on, when you're not making game choices, you're trying to like maybe ground it a little bit. You're not just sitting there thinking, what else should I do? Like you have like already like an innate like, well, if I was on a date, and it was like a first date, I would be doing this. Like I'm in a two-prov right now with Mark Long, and kind of the whole point of that is like to start in the middle, like in a very serious way, like start as in the middle or almost like beyond the middle as you can. So that's just something that's been on my brain for a long time right now.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So like for active choices, it's just a way of sort of moving either the story or the game forward, like going forward. And that's what a lot of, especially new improvisers, I find get really stuck on. Like, you find the world and you know who you guys are, but like, where do you go next? Right?
Yeah. That's like the terror that, like, a lot of, certainly me, like, starting out improv is like, you run out of things to say and then you panic a little bit because you're like, what am I meant to do now? And that's part of why having a game in a scene is helpful, because you can just, like, in your mind be like, what's funny? But that's not like the panacea. Like, if you're just thinking about like what will serve this game at every moment in the scene, it's going to be like, a thing that happened to me is like, I got stuck early on when I was really trying to like aggressively to try and play games. I would just like start doing listing in scenes, and it wasn't really like a funny thing. I was just like thinking of funny things that might happen. I wasn't actually doing any of them. The way out of that, or the way I found out of it, is like, have something to do in the scene. Like, you've got to just at one point in the scene be like, well, it's moving day, so we're going to have to move this couch. Might have nothing to do with the game, but like, it gives you like stuff to do, like talk about leaving, like pack stuff up. And that is going to be like the engine that's giving your game fuel. Like real stuff where you can just plug in games very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big thing I see as well, is like a lot of improvisers sort of standing there next to each other, just looking at each other and talking, not really physically doing anything. So are you saying that maybe a good way of doing or making a choice is by just like physically doing something that you're in, like doing something that you're in the location that you're in?
I think that's a very common kind of move and I don't disagree with it, but it isn't like something that's in my brain, like, I've got to physically do something. Like, doing something physical to me in a scene is like more a byproduct of making a choice for the scene, if you know what I mean. Kind of like, I don't know, now like all improv workshops, I've pimped myself into coming up with an example. I guess, like, if it was a scene where, I don't know, I'll do this kind of scene a lot, where it's like, talking to you and you're like a car salesman or something. The active choice really, in terms of like the plot of that scene, would be like talking about the financing of the car. Like, exploring based reality is another term that I've heard applied to this. Like, in the real world for this scene, what would you do, So that we don't just like sit there talking about cars. What is the things that would happen in the scene? Another important part of this that I really think about a lot is like just, this is a big note, a guy in UCB improviser, John Timothy, like, tried to enforce on me, because it was something I was really bad at, where I would start scenes and then I wouldn't like do the next thing, like in that car buying scene, like, I should buy the car. Like, if the scene goes the whole time without me buying the car, like, it feels stalled. There's no momentum to it. Yeah, not just like sitting there hoping that a game move will occur to me. Like, being like, okay, I've initiated the scene. I've got a premise and I'm initiating it, and I'm going to be the songwriter in a band. And as is usually in my scenes, I'm angry at other people. So I initiate as the songwriter, and then I initiate the premise, and it's pretty clear. But now, what are we going to do? Am I just going to stand here thinking of funny things? No. We have to, like, actually, like, play a song or fake play a song or something. I've pimped myself into doing that, so we kind of have to do it.
Well, let's say, for example, you don't find a game in your scene and you're playing it grounded. Let's say, for example, you're in the band, right? And you're all musicians in the band.
First of all, I reject your premise. I'll find the game of the scene. But let's go on. Let's say this is somebody else.
This is clearly not going to be you, okay? Is that what you want me to say?
Thank you, John.
God, Jesus Christ. So let's say there's musicians in the band, and you've got some characters there. You've got an emotion maybe, but you haven't really found a game, and you're just going through the motions of what reality what would happen in reality, right? You're practicing in a band. Obviously, the next hour in reality is you playing your instruments. How do you make a choice for something to happen other than just the real act of rehearsing in a band, which could be quite boring in an improv scene?
I agree. I think that's kind of like what part of your brain's fighting against. Like, you don't want this scene to be boring. But I think it's like, if you try and make something dramatic happen, it will be fake. Unless that's like the premise. You've got an organic premise or some truthful memory you can start with. It will feel fake. So, erring a little bit on the side of like, let's do like some of the boring stuff, and maybe just by doing that, a way of playing the game in this context will come up. Okay, so let's say this great scene that I've ginned up. I'm a songwriter, and I'm like, guys, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it because I look too sexy when I'm on stage or something like that.
That's something you would say, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm just bringing my real truth into it. Something like that. And I made clear, like, we're not a big band. We're a small town band. Almost nobody comes to our shows. I'm like, I just have a great fear that people are going to think of me as the next Mick Jagger. So I just don't want us to focus on that anymore. At that point, maybe that's just like the premise that I've laid out. And now I want to like start making active choices in the scene or exploring the base reality without thinking about the game. So things that would happen in that scene would be like tuning up the guitar. So I would probably just start doing that, and I'm certain that I can find some way of doing it where I would be concerned that the way I'm doing it makes me look sexy. And if you guys could, you know, like, obviously everybody could be like into it, pee in a pod if they want, or be like a voice of reason, but like, regardless, I'm not making that choice because I want that joke. I'm making that choice because I actively want the scene to start moving. And by doing that, I'm choosing something that I know, like tuning a guitar, or maybe I'm setting the effect setting on my delay, and maybe just by kneeling down and turning the knobs, I'm like, I'm showing my ass to everybody. I can't do this, you know.
I would love to watch that scene. The act of just you showing your ass to everybody would be so funny, and out of context if it wasn't explained.
Yeah. If we just like hit the premise and just started that.
Yeah. Well, let's. So
I think that's kind of like the two. I think of it in two different ways. One is like active choices for base reality, which is kind of like you're writing a non-comedic scene. What just happens in reality. Another way of putting it is exploring base reality. The other one is like active choices within a game. Like very, very frequently, a thing is like somebody is like, oh, why would I do that? My move 100% is like, we cut to that guy doing that thing. Like, I don't need to really see every step of like how to justify getting that person in that situation. We already said what would be funny, so go there and like explain it in that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing that I'm getting from your explanation of it is it really depends on the individual having at least a deal, you know, or having like a philosophy, which is something that it's important, especially when you think you don't have anything. You just go to yourself, see what would your character or what would your philosophy be depending on what you're doing right now or the action that you're doing right now.
I think that's a really nice way of like having kind of a way to drive scenes without even worrying about the context, if you know what I mean. Like in a lot of those examples, they were like, it had to be like, I had to start thinking about like band practice stuff. But like stuff like character POVs and deals, it's more like I could just choose to be somebody who like is like likes teasing people. Like that's not a game, but like I could do that in any scene. So that is a really powerful way of giving yourself like stuff to do in base reality. That is kind of fun, even though the game probably is going to be some other thing.
Yeah. All right, have you got like a final conclusion for this essay.
In conclusion, the moral of the story is, I don't know. One of the things that I got really hung up about when I was learning improv was not just doing the thing, like getting stuck, like talking about it, or like not like feeling like if we did that, that would be the end of the scene. Like I remember in a practice we did like years ago. I knew like what the premise was, but I did like the scene for like 3 minutes, I think, because I really wanted to like have just like the premise initiated on the last line, because I was like, everybody knows what I'm going to initiate, so this is going to be very funny when I do it. The whole point of like the importance of active choices to me to some degree is like not having a fear about not knowing what you're doing, just like hitting like a premise early, or like saying immediately what you want to do and then like worrying about it, you know, like making a choice to like tune your guitar without worrying about how the game's going to be played.
Yeah, because you can always go back to it, can't you? You can always use reality to save your scenes.
Yeah, it's never going to like hurt your scene to have like a line or two that isn't fully thinking about what the sketch version of it would be. Most of the time, the biggest advantage that improv has is that people are acting in some believable way, and that means doing stuff grounded helps the scene a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a nice way of phrasing it. Do that wink to the camera. So John McInnes has gone through active choices. Very nice, very nice, very nice. I also had a topic of conversation that was my mission to talk about today, which is premise initiations from openings. So for those of you who don't know, Bristol Longform Comedy, this YouTube channel, is part of Bristol Longform Comedy, the group in Bristol, UK, if you're not from the UK. We specialize in American style long-form improv, and myself and McInnes teach it, and something that before the whole quarantine thing, before the whole coronavirus hit, I was teaching premise initiations from monologue openings, and it was a really good class. Like I remember being in that class and everybody there was really getting it, like their minds were sort of changing and they were really starting to enjoy it, and I was really enjoying their scenes. So it kind of bummed me out. So I wanted to talk about it a bit. So usually in a format like an Armando, where you get a monologue as an opening, where we listen to one person tell a story, tell a truthful monologue basically about their life, a premise initiation from that would require one actor or one improviser to go forward and already at least have half an idea in their head, as opposed to an organic initiation where you've really got nothing. You've only got like the word or something, and then you sort of play off your partner and sort of build together the scene. A premise initiation would be, this person has something. They already have an idea of where the scene wants to go or where they want the scene to go. You're quite good with initiation premise openings, McInnes.
I love them. I really think it's almost like a core skill to some degree. You can do improv without ever doing premise, really. But I think a lot of the skills, such as like making active choices for the scene, like agreeing, like a lot of that is like the same skill set that you need to initiate a premise. So I really love it. When I'm working with a team, the first thing we'll do is just work on like doing monologues. What's an idea? How would we initiate it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like you said, it's for people who like with American style long form, we're basically going for comedy. You know, we're not the aim is to make the audience laugh, and I think a lot of organic initiation for improv, it is you're working together, of creating a story. You're sort of, you know, you can see, the audience can see the magic happen on stage and whatnot. But I really think with a premise, at least you've already your aim is to make the audience laugh. So I guess I do have some like big tips on they're big, McInnes. Like, they're pretty big.
Tips.
They're pretty goddamn big. Like,
I like big
so
tips,
big.
and I cannot lie.
My milkshake brings all the no.
Just move on. Just move on. Just move on.
Just move on.
Move on.
We'll edit this in post. It's all right. We'll edit this in post. It's fine. The main thing to get when you're first sort of scanning for ideas in a monologue. Let's say you're in a team and we have a monologist who's giving a monologue. The important thing is that monologist is telling something truthful. And the first thing you want to sort of look out for, and the first thing we teach in this class, is to look for the shiny thing in the monologue. What is it about the monologue, or what details are there that we can take? Anything fun, anything shiny, anything funny, anything that intrigues you, anything from the monologue at all, we can use. And my big fat first tip is to literally use what is said in the monologue. I think a lot of people get sort of a bit muddled up when they listen to a monologue and they want to play the character of the monologist, or they're already like 3 steps ahead. What's the game of this? And it's hard. It's really hard because you have to explain yourself. Imagine you're listening to a monologist and you're already like 3 or 4 steps ahead. You have to explain all of those steps to the audience. Whereas my tip is to literally use what was said. If the monologist was talking about a snow day and they had like a snowball fight, start as kids playing in a snowball fight. Like literally use the stuff that they give you.
Yeah, I've heard that tip before. In fact, I've heard it used in workshops before, and it is one of the best things you can do, especially starting out. Like, just use a line of dialogue that somebody said. Like, if somebody said something and it was funny, then just start your scene kind of just saying that. And you don't have to like know everything going in, but that is probably going to be like very clarifying, so there's no ambiguity about what the context of your scene is. And like you're not doing that thing where like you're being vague about what you might want.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point about repeating the line that was funny, because if you're looking to do comedy and the audience clearly laughed at something, do it again, right? We're not there to explore the character or explore the story. We're there to make people laugh. And if we use the same line of dialogue that made people roar with laughter, use it again. That actually moves on to my second big fat tip of the day, which is make the active choice of being the unusual person. Be the unusual person when you come off the back line. So usually if you're on the back line, you're listening to the monologist, you already have something, you've heard something fun that you want to use. Be the unusual person. Be weird. Be the one with the problem. Be the one be the one with the philosophy. Because I've seen this done with students where one person will come out with a premise initiation, and it's so hard to try and explain what your idea is, but you're throwing it to the other person who is there, then they might be 50% with you because they heard the same monologue, right? So they have an idea of where you're coming from, but they're not going to be the one making those big decisions because they're literally just listening to you. So the worst thing you can do is come on in a scene and do the snowball fight and be like, hey, this old man is he's like using real weapons. He's like throwing sticks at us, and then that person has to explain themselves. That person has to find a philosophy, has to find a reason, has to find a justification. Be the unusual person. Like, take it on board. It's fun to be unusual. I love being unusual. McInnes has been in scenes where I'm just unusual for every single scene that we do. And because it's fun. It's very, very fun to do.
It's fun. And like you said, it's like enormously helpful to your scene partner to be like, you don't have to know or remember anything from the opening. Like, I'm just going to say something and you can just treat it like it's a scene that you've never heard of. If you need that person to be weird, then they probably have to remember something from the monologue. And it can be kind of hard to remember stuff just starting out. But it's also like, sometimes the monologue can have like 2 or 3 things that kind of sound similar, so they're like a little bit put off about which one you want, and it feels like there's wrong choices to make. It's just like way kinder to the other person to be like, I'm a big weirdo. You can react to this if you want. There are other contexts where sometimes it can be useful to be a voice of reason, like if you're I do that I do exercises sometimes where like that kind of is the exercise where you have to endow somebody with like a massive thing and they just have to immediately take it on and like go ahead, because that's like a really useful tip for like acceptance and yes anding. But I'll do that in workshops and then just don't throw people under the bus during shows. During a show, if you got an idea, you should do it.
Yeah, especially for people starting out, like it's good to be the unusual person. If you know, once you've gained enough confidence and you're working with people that you know, go for it. Start see what you can play with.
Also, this is some, you know what, this is probably like a debatable tip that I think about now. Like maybe it is or isn't true, but one context in which sometimes this isn't true, or at least I see it not being true, is like at jams, like where people might be like a little bit wild. Like sometimes it's fun to just come off and be like the voice of reason, making their weird things like pop. Just because like people are very nervous at jams, often is like an improviser's like first time on stage with other people they don't know, so like not a lot of people are voices of reason. So it can just help in that context to be like somebody who's like, hey, you like you're scared of ponies, right? Like they can love gifts like that when you give them that. But again, that's definitely a debatable thing.
No, I think that's also true. Which actually coincidentally moves on to big fat tip 3, which is when you're doing your idea, when you're explaining your idea, your premise idea, try and say it in a way which helps your partner understand where it's coming from. Obviously, that ties in nicely with literally use what was said, because if you're literally using what was said, your partner or everybody else on your team has heard the same monologue, so they'll know exactly where it's coming from in the monologue. But you've got to explain. You've got to explain your idea to a person as if they have no idea, and this sort of ties in. This is okay for like when you mention with like jams. So if you're sort of giving an idea off to somebody else, it's good to be obvious. It's good to be honest about what's happening because they have no idea. But yeah, ultimately it gives us an idea of where you want to go in your scene, and it just makes everything a lot clearer, doesn't it?
Yeah, like obvious choices help. Like there's no. I wrote that blog recently, and one of the things I put in it as like a tip that I strongly endorse is like admit everything, like don't lie, but almost I kind of meant that a little bit more like admit and accept kind of as much as you can possibly do. Like don't lie, but if there's also a way of like just saying yes to stuff without negating anything, then that's a good move.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to accept things. Why don't we should accept more things, McInnes?
I don't know what you mean. Like I truly dislike doing that.
Okay, fine. So we're going to move on and not do any tips anymore. What's your what's your opinion on when okay, let's say you're in a jam like you were talking before. What's a good way of initiating? What would you say that as an experienced performer, if you're performing with someone who it's obviously their first time, would you be the unusual person, or would you try and be a voice of reason and try and give them the unusual thing?
That's interesting. I tend to, at jams, in that particular context, I will be very reticent to initiate anything. I'll be like, I'm going to be more supporting, like coming out as the second person more than the first person, because my internal mechanics are like, initiate is weird. But like, that can be hard sometimes, because I'm going to have to immediately flip to being like either normal or like trying to match my unusual thing with whatever they've did. So more often in a jam, I'll be on the back line. If people are coming out with ideas, great, I'll come out a second to somebody. But if nobody's coming out, then I will just come out with something, and I'll give them like a small thing, just to see if like they're going to go big with it. Is a way of putting it. If they go big, I'll be like, cool. I kind of know what you're into. I'm going to be a voice of reason. If they are somebody who is like a little bit nervous and doesn't want to make a big choice in a scene, I'll make a very big choice, and their calmness to it will itself be funny enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. If I'm in a jam, like I wouldn't initiate that much. I'm more of a supporting role, and
I'm walking into scenes, buddy. I'm walking into scenes.
Hey, I didn't say anything about not walking into scenes. I'm just not going to initiate it. Even if I'm the first person to go in, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to wait for just watching all the new people. I just go, come on, go. But no, I'll support. I'll do more support, and I think that's a good note to say to people who've been doing it for a while. Maybe you haven't been in many shows, but you've definitely been taking a lot of courses, or maybe okay, let's say you have been in a lot of shows. Don't discourage jams like drop-in jams or like show jams. Don't discourage them, because even though there might be a lot of new people, it's good practice. It's like really, really good practice. If you're in the Bristol area, definitely recommend doing the Bristol Improv Theatre Jam like every month, because it is good practice. And you get to work with a lot of cool people. But I
love long form jams.
Long form jams, I'd say, are very, very fun, and if there was like a cross between the two, if there was like a short form jam and then a long form jam, that would be so good. Love them.
Yeah, and I think a good thing about jams in general is this has happened to me when I was starting out, and I know it's happened to other people, is like initially you just like blame other people for scenes going badly. You're like, they should have got this. Or like, I was being so obvious with this thing that I needed. But jams, like, just you don't know each other literally, so it kind of hurts being able to get on the same page quicker. Jams are a really good way of like getting experience of that, and the solution to that is like just accepting stuff. That's the thing you do better than anybody, really, John. Like, you will like accept things like very quickly and very like without much of a fuss, and it is something you can't really do a lot of jams without. Like, you gotta be somebody who just walks in and is like, somebody is like, "Hello, Sherlock Holmes." You gotta like immediately be Sherlock Holmes. Like, even if you like don't know anything about Sherlock Holmes, you gotta just like try and give them what they want. And that's like a hard thing. I would say like after like 6 months to a year. 6 months to a year, like, I know all the rules, I'm trying to execute them right now, but my scene partner just doesn't understand the rules. If only they knew them better, we'd be doing better scenes. Doing jams, especially with like random people who may never have done improv before, that's a good experience to like working with like people who have never done improv before, and therefore you have to be able to do that.
Yeah, one thing I definitely got was, or one thing that I've heard from a couple of people is that they would give an idea off, and the same thing that you mentioned would happen, is like that person, because of they're not as experienced, they wouldn't get it, right? So you give an idea, you do a premise idea, the person doesn't get it, and then you blame them for it. And like, it shouldn't be the case. Like, you should not be blaming anybody for for being on stage for the first time. That's crazy. It does go back to premise ideas, that if you are like in jams, I love supporting people, but if I am going to initiate anything, I am going to give them something, nothing huge. I'm not going to be like, you're a Yeti monster, but like at least give them a location or something that we can play with. And that goes a long way. That goes a long way for people.
Yeah. I mean, I have sympathy for people who find themselves like in that position and they feel annoyed, because like, especially stuff like premise, like there's this level of etiquette you're kind of expecting, and like it is kind of like a little bit like structured in the sense of like everything after this first line can almost be anything, but I really would like you to pay attention to this first line. And if somebody doesn't do that, I understand. You're like we could have done a good scene, but now we're doing this other scene that is good. But like if you were accepting ideas, we would have done the other one. So I have sympathy for it, but it will never help your scene to be in the middle of it. Be like, no, we're doing my idea.
Yeah, with those people, 100% all the time, it's because they've been doing drop-ins for a really long time and they haven't done any courses. For that, I'd say do courses. Do like be with people in the same group as you. Be with people who are learning the same thing as you, and you get to you grow together, and then you get better together. Yeah, I get that a lot actually. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say let's finish with the. That's going to be my conclusion. My conclusion for premise ideas, if that's okay with you, John.
That is okay with me, John.
So my conclusion with premise initiations from a monologue is to literally go with what was said in the monologue. Try not to overthink anything. Literally go with what was said. Try and deliver a premise as clearly as possible, making it super obvious, because the audience are there and they need to understand what's going on. Your partner's there and they need to understand what's going on. The backline are there, so it's best not to be coy. And then the last thing was try and be an unusual person. It's just a nice way of doing it. So from that conclusion, I'd say let's start talking about talking about the stuff that we've just been talking about, and because it seems that we are going different, we're going to different conversations, and I am really curious as to what you think about this. The first thing that comes to mind is what's your opinion of people who have been doing classes for a really long time, and they don't really know where to go next? Like they enjoy doing the classes, like say for example they enjoy doing a weekly class, but they're not sure whether to go into courses, or they're not sure whether to do just a different style, like say short form or long form, or well, I know the answer to that. The answer will be you saying go to do long form. But what's your opinion on
that? There's a couple of different questions in there. The first one I'll pick up in the one that you were laughing a little bit, and I was also laughing a little bit, which is there is a school of thought which is you should kind of do all kinds of improv just to try it out. Or you should start with short form and move on from that. But I don't do it that way. I think you should do what you like. You shouldn't feel obligated to have to do something else. Just because, I really just dislike the idea of, when people start improv, they have to do short form because, there's some idea that that's how you would start. There's a lot of short form exercises that are very useful in long form. But if you like long form, just do that. Just immediately, day one, do scenes. I like that. That's my take on it. But like you were saying, somebody who's been doing classes once a week, and maybe somebody's been doing a drop in once a week, and what should they do after that? I think my cat's about to come on camera right now. Not my cat, my flatmate's cat, technically.
Oh right.
No. He's now just going to meow until I let him out of the store.
Do you want me to keep talking until you let your cat out?
Yeah, find a little bit of filler until I let Oscar
out. So next week we will have hopefully McInnes again, myself, and Oscar joining us. That would be a really good show. That'd be a really good one. So from basing on what John McInnes has said, yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be the main topic of conversation. This is going to be the main thing. So I'm just going to agree with everything McInnes said. But we're going to just agree with everything until we end of stream, until we find something that we can discuss. But no, I agree. I'm just saying I agree with that idea. I've had a couple of people come up to me and ask, where should I go? And honestly, it doesn't just do what you're happy with. If you're happy doing this class every week, just keep going to it. If that's the speed you're going at, that's fine. If you're learning,
I'm a big fan of people stretching themselves. If you want to try things, because you're I'm kind of intimidated by it. Maybe I should try it. I like that. But you shouldn't feel an obligation that you have to do things in some kind of order, or you shouldn't feel the obligation that you have to do one of improv because
improviser who's only just been doing stories and then you do long form. That's great. That's or sketch improv. That you'll only improve. It's not like you're gonna you're not you're gonna lose everything. You're just and also I think a big thing to say as well is that if you're going to a class that things that you don't agree with, say like a narrative improviser goes to a long form class, right? There are things that you're not gonna agree with because you've been taught differently. Instead of like fighting against it or saying that it's not good, just take the good stuff. Take the stuff that you enjoy, take the stuff that you understand and use it. You don't have to take everything.
Yeah, Billy Merritt, I think we were in the same class when he gave this note, which is kind of like, I don't care what anybody else has said outside this class. Just for these like 2 hours, anything I say is the law. And when you go into other people's classes, that's probably true. Whatever they say is true. But the amount of time you have in a workshop often isn't like conducive of like debating about what is improv. Like if you're in some of these classes, probably because you respect kind of what they do. So like just for 2 hours, even if I've done this before, I've done workshops with people where I'm like, your style isn't particularly the thing that I like the most, but I'm kind of trying to stretch myself. I think there's some things that you do say that I appreciate, so I kind of want to like see what a workshop with this person would be like. And I think that's a good thing. But I'm not going to in the middle of the workshop be like, actually, I disagree with this, and we're going to talk about this for a while.
Oh yeah, I've had that, and I've been in classes where other students have said stuff like that, and it's just a killer. It's a mood killer. It's like you're not supposed to be there to just be big-headed about what you know. You're there to just learn something new.
To some degree, that's what teams are. Like teams can have a debate within them about what they want to do because they're trying to put on a show or like have broader artistic ambitions. And maybe you should have some of that in a workshop, especially if the workshop is kind of like, I just want to work on this thing and it's like not clinical. But if it's like a 101 or a 201 or like we're going to do premise initiations, there's not a lot of usefulness like debating it.
Oh, absolutely. 101 and 201, it's all dandy and good, but when you get to 301, 401, it's like
debate them hard in 301 immediately. Be like, what bullshit is this opening? I don't like this opening. Let's do something else.
Guys, open up your improv books and throw them in the bin.
Go back to the first thing that you said, like before Oscar the cat infected my stream. You were talking about like people doing weekly classes. What should they do after that? I think kind of it's down to how much improv they want to do. I know a lot of people who are like just like they're super casual and they're like cool to just do one class a week forever, and I think that's fine. But like if they want to do more, then I would almost say like they need to put together at least a practice group. That's my thought process. You know, like so a practice group is kind of like a team that has no obligation to have to perform. Like just gather a couple of people that you like hanging out with and do improv with just those people. You can think of it as a team if you want, but the term practice group is kind of like we don't ever have to perform. And I've been in those and I've taught some of those, and they are more. You get way more like scenes. You get to like have a little bit of saying like what we should cover. I like practice groups a lot.
Yeah, it's a great way to practice, and you can disagree in them as well. That's what I like about it. In workshops, you're sort of like learning a bit, and you're learning with what. You're learning what you want. You're learning with what the instructor gives you. But with teams, you're there. You can discuss stuff. You can talk about how things went, what you did like, what you didn't like. That's a relieving thing. I like discussing stuff I don't like, but not in like sort of in a way that is constructive to what you want to do and especially what your team wants to do.
Yeah, and you know if you start getting tired of like practice groups or like just drop-ins. You should. I think the step that doesn't happen a lot that I would love to see more of is like teams going out and starting their own shows. Like,
absolutely.
So it almost doesn't happen to some degree. Like, if you have a team, you can start a show. Like, there's nobody out there telling you. There's nobody that gives you a license to start a show. you could just go out and do it. Okay, you'll have to like rent a place. But like most people in the community are very nice. They will tell you how to do that and who to talk to. And most places in Bristol, you can get like a place for free. That's rare, but you can sometimes get a place for free if it's an infrequent show during the weekdays. Or you can get places for like £20 or £30 for the night. And that's almost nothing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. McInnes, we're going to do, if it's cool with you, what we'll do is we'll answer some people's questions, because people are in the chat and we can see the chat. Hello, everybody. And then after we've answered some questions, then we'll sort of finish off with improv during quarantine.
Yes. Improv during the time of quarantine.
So the first one that we'll do is we've got Harry Day in the chat. Hello, Harry Day.
Hello, Harry Day.
Harry Day asks, well, first of all, Harry Day says, I like your shirts. And thank you.
I did comment before the chat that I accidentally wore the same shirt I'm wearing in the like waiting guard, which is very strange.
Was that accidental?
It was 100% accidental. John, I own about 3 shirts.
I know. Harry asks, what exercises formats do you think work well online, considering latency issues of group video calls? Well, I guess that moves into quarantine stuff. So I guess we can answer. Well, let's answer that at the end. Let that be the thing at the end.
Yeah. There's definitely stuff very related to at the end. But like I'll plug that blog I wrote recently. I think it's happened for most of the blogs that you've put on BLC's website recently, which is like, I'm kind of like trying to write exercises in them for solo, and they are much more like stuff to do in conversation than scenes. But you're hopefully exercising the same skill. But we'll come to that like after our questions.
So Roland McMoran is here, and he asks, how do you transition from improv to stand-up?
You don't. Improv's better than stand-up.
Well, we've both. I've done like a little bit of improv. I'd say a little bit of improv.
You've done more than it. Don't be modest. You've done more than a little bit.
I meant to say stand-up. I've done like maybe I do like 85-90% improv and 10% stand-up. But you started with stand-up, didn't you?
Yeah, I started in sketch, but like I've done lots of stand-up. I haven't done a ton of it of recent, but like from 2016 to 2017, I was much more of a stand-up person than an improv person, you could argue. So I've got opinions on that, and it might not be the most, it's debatable, but I don't think there's a massive crossover between improv and stand-up. I think stand-up is a lot more like a writing science. So game is kind of like a thing that comes up a lot. Game for sure is like related to stand-up. Like you want to find a funny idea, hit 3 beats, the funniest 3 beats of it, and then like move on to another stand-up bit or another stand-up game. It can be good a little bit to like think on your feet and like do audience stuff, but like honestly, I know there's courses that do like improv to stand up, but I just don't personally see that as, I see them as like completely different things. Stand up and sketch, I think they're very related, but improv, I know, and I also know like a bunch of stand-ups who have done improv because they were like, maybe this will help with my stand-up. Nearly unanimously, they're like, no, it was very different and weird.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I've had a couple of people that have done transition improv into stand-up, and they've definitely said it might not have worked on because I personally think the transition between improv and sketch is more adamant than improv to stand up, because with improv to sketch you're trying to write a funny scene, and it's the same with when you're doing long form improv, you're writing what the comedy of the scene is. But most people who've transitioned into stand up say that the one thing that they did get, at least during the improv courses, is stage presence, like having the ability to stand in front of people, having the ability to be like confident on stage. And that's like a big thing. I sometimes use stand up a little bit in classes to try and explain that you want to kind of be fearless when you're on stage. You don't want the fear to get to you.
I agree with that a lot. I would say a little bit like a lot of that comes from like just doing stand up. Like you get used to that standing on stage and dying. I almost would say it's more useful to do stand up to get better at improv. I've said that a lot actually. Like improv audiences are very nice. You can't die as hard as you will die at a stand up gig than an improv gig. So I think it is a very useful exercise, at least for improvisers, to go book 5 minutes somewhere or 3 minutes, do your best set, and then like see how you feel afterwards, because it's very useful in terms of doing improv. I would almost say like in improv in general, the general like kind of stuff we do, long form in particular, like I don't personally connect it to being useful for stand up much at all. But I do think, and this will come up later, I think solo improv for sure would be useful in that regard. And you are the person who knows all about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like that's definitely something to get to, something to do with feeling comfortable on stage, doing solo improv. And it's funny that solo improv is terrifying to improvisers. It's funny. That's funny to me. I think
it definitely is. I think most improvisers, you put them on stage by themselves to their improv scene, and they're like, this is completely different to a regular improv scene. And it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think
you're so used to solo, like it's probably a foreign experience or way of thinking about a scene.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's more of a collaborative thing. I guess that's the main difference between the stand-up and improv. I think there's more of a correlation between improv and sketch. That to me is much more obvious. With stand-up, I can honestly just think of being brave and owning the stage is another thing as well that can go quite well with solo improv. Being able to take a stage and taking the time to just have it and not give a shit about anything.
I think that's really important in stand-up. That's almost like one of the most important things, like that level of confidence. But I would also say like a lot of improvisers can get along without ever having to do that. Like but improv has so many like roles within it. Like you don't have to kind of create this persona of being like the guy who comes up with the funny idea. You have to in stand up. Like there's nobody else out there that's going to do it for you. The one thing, actually, this is a little bit weird. The one little part of improv that I think is probably pretty useful for stand up is group games and heralds. I think having that kind of like attitude of like fuck it and like using the audience very directly. Audiences love crowd interaction. One of the things they love about stand-up is there's this fake illusion in their mind that the stand-up's making it all up on the spot. So whenever you talk to the audience and like do something with it, they do enjoy it. So I think group games, very weird. I've not really thought about it before, but I think group games are like the most useful part. In particular, group games as I think of them in Heralds, which is like often a little bit weird, vaguely defined to start with, and very like experimental and audience interacting.
That's interesting. We're going to go on to another question. This is from Vampiretta Gulliver. It's an interesting name. It's a cool name. They say, guys, you can't leave 45 minutes without
Are we rating people's names now?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know we were doing that. Harry D, pretty good name. Roland, yeah, I like it.
they're all solid names so far. Let's just see if somebody's name comes up that we don't like. Vampiretta Gulliver says, what's the hardest form of improv? The hardest form of improv.
It's interesting. I mean, like, I guess it depends on what form means. A little bit, part of me wants to be like, do you mean like form in terms of show structure? I do think about that a little bit. Maybe we should have like a little mini discussion about that and then move into more general, like, form is something maybe not just meaning show structure. So, like, obviously, like, the Herald is a very popular form, but I talk to a lot of people and we all agree it's very hard.
Yeah.
To start out with, for sure.
Yeah. I guess it really depends on... I guess... Well, that's a tough question. It really depends.
I will say, I think the hardest form to consistently nail is the mono scene. Because you don't have an opening, so, like, immediately you're going to have to be good actors. You're going to have to organically find ideas and be entertaining and patient. And that tends to be a hard skill in a lot of long form because you do get used to, like, having an opening. So just being like that, like, and the fact that you're going to have to live with the stuff that you do for the whole time, you know. So a mono scene, to go over it, is like a scene that takes place in one location, no sweep edits, usually real time. There's other versions, but like when I'm talking about it, I'm usually meaning that. I would say to consistently do that show great, that is maybe the hardest form. There's other forms that have like more bells and whistles. The movie form has a... I mean, I'm almost like going to say the movie's harder, but like I don't think it is harder consistently though.
I think a form is hard. Is hard when you can. It's the way you advertise it to your audience. So I think the movie format is quite an easy one to do. Like, I'm not saying I think every form is hard, but if you've got like a good team and you guys are, you know, you've been practicing for a year, the movie format is quite easy for an audience to watch. Now I think normally improv is quite hard for a new audience to watch. That's how I'm sort of seeing this. The movie is a good point. Yeah. The movie is easy to watch because you know what it is. You know it's a movie. You know the movie tropes. It's just a format where you do a lot of camera angles, and people know what movies are. It's the same, I believe, as well, also with the mono scene or the documentary as well. People know what those things are. It always takes place in one location, the mono scene. So it's not too jarring for a new audience. So that's why I'm going to go with the Herald.
That's a good point.
I think the Herald is the hardest format because you are always evolving it, you're always changing it, and it's much easier for an audience to get confused by it. With my experience, it's been harder to consistently do a good Herald show. I think the longest I've done is probably like 3 Heralds in a row that I've walked away and been like, that was really good, but the 4th one was trash.
This is a major indictment for both of us, John, because we are in many teams together.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean. It's like I'm honest about what I think of shows, even though it takes me like a day or two to sort of process it. You'll see me after a show. Like, if I didn't think it went well, I'm sort of just there thinking about it. If it went well, I'll still be there thinking about it.
The Herald has the most things in it, and it is the training wheels Herald that we teach. It is very structured, so it is very hard initially. But I often think in my brain, like, is that true because of something specific in the Herald? Because I'm not certain it is. Like, I think just learning any form is hard and takes a little bit of time, you know? I think within our own team, Jazz Police, we are good at doing consistent Heralds. They don't all have to be great, but there is consistency to them. And I think you're right a little bit about getting the audience to understand kind of it, but I think that's just because, like, so frequently I see people try to explain the structure of the Herald, and I honestly don't think it has ever helped the show. The audience
Oh my God,
don't
yeah.
even slightly give a shit what a Herald is. I personally
Yeah.
prefer to not use the term Herald. It would be like if the usher at a movie came up and was like, "Okay, everybody, you're about to watch a kind of hero's journey story. There's going to be kind of like an exciting incident, a kind of like lowest point, and then like a great sort of return." And then the usher walked out of the theater, and everybody would just be like, "What the fuck was that? Like, am I going to have to remember that during the show?" It should just be like funny scenes. Like, so as we tend to do, we just say like, it's a sketch show.
Yeah.
I know a Herald can be more than that, but if I'm explaining it to an audience who do not know what a Herald is, I'll just be like, what we are doing is a sketch show.
There is nothing more satisfying than a new audience member coming to watch a Herald and then coming away going, I got that. Like, I understood what everything was. I understood the beats. I understood what the group game was. I understood where the scenes were coming from the opening. Like, that is the most satisfying thing that I've ever got out of doing the Heralds, or any format really. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's safe to say we've actively chosen never to explain what a Herald is at the beginning of shows. It's like, hey, you're just going to watch a bunch of scenes and sketch scenes, and they're going to be funny. And then that's it.
I think that helps. I'm in half my mind to be like, the movie is harder than mono scenes, but I've said mono scene, and like a good improviser, I'm going to stick to my guns.
You're going to stick to your guns.
But you did raise a good point, which is like, there's nothing weird in a mono scene, and that really helps, especially with the audience who don't know what improv is.
So McInnes is with monoscene and I'm with the Herald. I hope that answers your question.
Mine's is monoscene,
Gallagher.
Mine's is monoscene, but with an asterisk, and beside that asterisk it says maybe a movie.
We're gonna go to our we're gonna do another question. This is not from the chat. This is something a student has asked. This is from Katie. Hello, Katie.
Before we go on to that, just a small segue, not to take up too much time, but this does relate to something I say quite a lot, which is like, there's often a discussion about like narrative improv, and a thing I often say is like, I think that's harder to do than long form. I think telling a story on stage where the story is improvised is much harder. When you do like, one of the reasons I was talking about the movie form is hard is because like, I mean, one of the reasons is you're kind of like doing storytelling. But that's not even that hard, because you're just doing a story from a movie that we all know already. If you are earnestly and honestly trying to create a new story on stage, doing that at the level of like doing a good story, that is harder than doing like, because you're presumably also doing a comedy. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're just doing storytelling. But like, storytelling and improv is harder because like, you need every single scene to like kind of have an arc to it. You really need to like think about like character development. You're thinking so much in that it's one of the reasons I don't tend to do it. I do a little bit of it from time to time. I don't like the persona that I have of like, old man McInnes would never do narrative. I do narrative, but like we did the horror long form. And that was a non-comedic, broadly narrative show. It used long form, and it had like a version of a game in a scene. But I think that kind of thing is way harder than like long form.
Even further, we both met in the end of 2016 doing Unscripted Players.
Yeah,
it was a narrative show.
Yeah,
Owl Street. Yeah, I agree. I never really thought of it like that. Telling us, I think, because again, this goes back to like the solo improv point you made. It's because I come from a narrative background. For me, it just doesn't feel, it feels like second nature at this point. It's just like telling stories. I think but yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. We're not going to explain everything just because we don't know. we're just two guys.
Like That's a good point to bear in mind. Literally every single improv teacher that you've ever taken is just kind of somebody who's like giving you their opinion. Like they're probably giving you lessons that they personally have found useful and that they got from people they respect greatly. So you've got like a good line of trust to that advice. But literally, there's no improv rule you can like not just be like, no, I don't want to do that. You should try it out first. You should really like make an effort to try and do it. But if it's not working for you, you can just drop
it. Katie, a student from Bristol Longform Comedy, she says, can I have some tips and tricks for signaling to your partner what you need for an assist? She says, she goes on to say, I know you should try to come on with everything you need and let your partner react, but what if, for example, I really need you to be a dinosaur for this initiation to land, not looking to control the whole scene?
Sorry, Kate, you're the dinosaur. That's what I'd say. I mean, there's probably stuff you can do. Like, be very clear what you need, you know, like almost more clunky than you think you even need to be if you really need the other person to be a dinosaur. But I would say the honest answers to that is get it out of your head that you can be in control of other people in scenes, because you truly can. The other people are just like random processes. Like, if they're nice, they will yes and. But there's not even like, there's no guarantee about that. They may not even slightly care what you want. So if there's something you need to be in control of, that's kind of, again, a big part of that blog that I wrote recently. You really need to, in scenes, to take full control of the things that you can control. And really in scenes, the only thing you can control is yourself. You're not in control of the other person. You're not in control of the backline. You're not in control of the audience. So if you want a dinosaur in a scene, you be the dinosaur. And your idea cannot depend on the other person being a dinosaur. It would be nice, but that's a pea in a pod kind of scene. Now, okay, there's a caveat to all this, which is like, if in a workshop, you're really clear. You're like, okay, Tyrannosaurus Rex, I've installed the device that makes you talk to me. Tell me, as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, how do you see the world? If that person then goes like, what do you mean? I'm just a regular human being. Okay, obviously that's like a very clear denial, and a teacher would be like, maybe just be a T-Rex just to start with. But you as an improviser can't go onto the stage with that in mind, because there isn't like a teacher on stage with you being like stopping the scenes. The scene should never stop. You should take like errors like that as like gifts and try and use them. So I do think that is the honest answer, because I used to think this is kind of what we're talking about at the start of the show, which is like, you do get into a mindset when you start out, which is like, there are rules, and if the other person isn't playing it, then they fuck the scene. That just isn't how it works. You have to be able to do the scene almost regardless of what the other person does.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. I also sort of covered it a little bit in premise initiations. It's just like being very clear and being the unusual person. Yeah, be the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Make that choice because you're in control of the scene, and it's fun. It's fun to play unusual characters. But yeah, if you want to play the voice of reason, if you are trying to make the person do something, it might not work, but being as clear as possible. Like, if you're doing an exercise, if you're doing like a 3-line scene where you have 2 people, you say a line of dialogue, the other person says a line of dialogue, you say a line of dialogue, and that's it. You've only got 3 lines. In your 2-person 3-line scene, try and establish your who, what, where. Who are you? Where are you? What's going on? And the way I teach that is just like be robotic to start off with. Be as obvious as possible. Say who you are. Hello, Father. I love the bathroom that we are in. Thank you for changing the toilet paper with me. Being as obvious as possible is a good gateway, and it's good practice to moving into a bit more colloquial scenes. But being obvious doesn't hurt. Yeah. If anything, you're getting to the point. You're getting to why you're there.
You'll get to. You start like mechanically, and then like as it becomes second nature, you can be more artful. But like to start with, you should just be like, yeah, like you're saying like, Father, I am your son. Here we are. Because like that's not what's going to be funny about. I mean, okay, maybe it will turn out that you're robots or something, but like you don't want to worry about stuff like what's factual in the scene. You want to worry about like the game in the scene to some degree. That's kind of what you want to have fun with. One exercise for this, which is like deliberately designed for this, and is related to premise, is like I won an exercise as far as I'm aware that I came up with, and I love it.
Oh.
I love it a lot. Which is like you get backline up, you get them to do like a bunch of monologues, and then you even like give the whole backline a little bit of time to like craft premise initiations, and be like as clear. Just be like this is be as very clear with the initiation as possible. But in this exercise, the second person out has to. Before they even hear the initiation, they have to have in their mind something locked, which is going to be so banal and so nothing that it will not pay attention to the initiation. For example, I'm looking at like a Lego castle in front of me right now. So let's say my premise was going to be something like, God, now I'm pimping myself into having to come up with an initiation, but I can do it.
All right.
Something like an army general who wants to make a tank out of Lego. That's a premise, because that's how he did it as a kid. He's going to he wants to bring his childhood experiences to his real life. So maybe that's the initiation. Something like, Sarge, I know this is a little bit out there, but when I was a kid, I used Lego. And I think it's going to work. We should replace our MP5s with Lego guns. Big clunky initiation. The other person, everybody in the backline has to have something in their head which is banal and will not pay attention. So as example, something like I couldn't find parking outside. Like something that pays no attention to the initiation. Like kind of the worst thing you could conceivably happen in a scene. At that point, the whole lesson of this is you've got to drop your premise. So premise is great when people agree, but you can't have a fight on stage about what the scene's about. So you have to make the scene about whatever the banal thing was. If someone says parking, the scene's about parking, and we'll come back to Lego hopefully later. But make the core meat of the scene about whatever the second person says before you try and resurrect the premise.
Cool. Yeah, that's a nifty exercise to practice with. Actually, I was just reading the comments in the YouTube comments, and Vampiretta Gulliver also says, tell us some funny exercises to try. We just gave you two. We just gave you two exercises that you can try out. So
I mean, that is legitimate.
There they are.
It is legitimately, you should never do it on stage, but it is legitimately very funny when someone says a full premise, and the other person says, I like dogs.
yeah, and trying to make it work. That's a good practice. We did say before the stream started that we wanted to look for maybe 30-45 minute stream. We're at hour 18 right now. Hour 18? It's not 18 hours. 1 hour and 18 minutes. So I'm going to suggest that we finish the stream with Harry Day's question.
All right, Day.
Which moves into Harry Day. He's having an Harry Day. So Harry Day asks, what exercises formats do you think work well online, considering latency issues of group video calls? And this moves into the conversation about doing improv during quarantine, which is something we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
So I would say, right off the bat, I'd say that McInnes and I have been, and with other people that I've been doing it with, there's been a couple of improvisers who've been doing it. We've been going up on Skype or going on Zoom or going on Google Hangouts or whatever, and we are trying to do
I did an online jam hosted by a guy in LA.
Really? Did you?
Josh from the Meet was hosting a
Oh
jam,
yeah.
so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Was it good? How was it? How was the experience?
It was surprisingly high quality. Like it was just a bunch of
Wow.
randoms I'd never met. But like everybody was like very tolerant of like the context of it.
Wow. Well, there we go. Jams do work, and the shows that I've done as well with you, McInnes, they've worked out okay. It's just a matter of it. Really, I think the main thing to talk about, or the thing that first hits me is it really the physicality is not there, obviously, but it does sharpen your senses when you're listening to what is being said, and you're choosing your words a little bit more carefully. And you don't do that; you do that naturally. You're listening and talking and doing scenes much more naturally than you would do if you were on stage in front of people.
100%. You've got a you've got a at least during your online set just briefly become like somebody who does podcasts a little bit more than just an improviser. You've really got to think about like scene painting a lot. You know, if you're a fan of Improv for Humans or The Meet, like those are good examples if you want to like listen to improv that works that way. Because like it is kind of theatre of the mind. You've got to be like painting a lot. You've got to get your like character, and you've even got to kind of get your physicality across in like the audio more than the video, because the video is like if you're doing like a show where like what we've done, I think we've done like where we are not using the webcam as a part of the base reality, like almost the video doesn't even need to exist because like it's all going to be fake anyway. You know, it's kind of like a blackout stage. The other context, which I've seen a lot of other improv teams do, I don't know if I'm a massive fan of it, but I have seen teams do this very well, which is like they use the webcam as a part of their base reality. Doesn't mean that every scene is going to be like friends on Skype. You know, you can do like a bunch of people living on different planets, communicating with each other. You could do like sci-fi stuff helps with a lot of this. Like it justifies using a webcam in some context. You could be heads like in Futurama, like a bunch of little jars talking to each other. And like the
Yeah,
reason that kind of helps is because like the lag in you talking is a part of the base reality. You're using it kind of as a gift.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of imaginative stuff that you can do with it.
The
I do.
UCB Harold Team Pony are doing like I think weekly shows on Mondays where they do this. I just saw them do one. Will Hines was like a guest in it, and they did like a heist gang all communicating via Skype to coordinate like the heist they're about to do, and it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no problem. As well as there's no problem either of trying to do a scene without using the webcam as you know as the focal point. You know, like McInnes says, using a lot of cut tos, using a lot of scene paintings can make a scene work. I mean, let's not forget that the bat Harold is supposed to be done in the dark. There is not supposed to be any movement. You can do a bat.
Yeah, the my fellow friend in the Glasgow team Couch and Edinburgh Improv Festival guy Jason Perez has a workshop that he does even outside of the context of quarantine where everybody does improv like with blindfolds on, and it's kind of like the same thing, you know, like you've lost your physicality, you've lost the ability to see like the only thing you've got is kind of like the words that you're hearing. The whole point of his workshop is like you're paying attention to those words for once. Like it should be like kind of heightened in terms of like listening and agreement. There's an argument that like that's a nice part about doing this. Like you got to shut up a little bit more. That's something I've got to do. You've got to like really listen to whatever they're saying. You can't be like spooked by an audience. There's some nice upsides to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works. It can work. the thing that comes to mind is Saturday Night Live last weekend did a show just all from their own homes, their respective homes, and it worked quite well. Like I was surprised how well it worked, and even shows that I've done, like they're fun. You know, as long as you're still communicating with your mates, you're still going. There is a little bit of hope in that. It's just nice to see people.
It's
and nice
definitely different. Like it's not the exact same as doing like an improv scene. You definitely don't have like physicality, so it's kind of harder to figure out how to like communicate. So verbal players will be rewarded a lot more than like clowns, because there's no audience and like their physicality is restricted to just this webcam. But like
that's good though. That's good. I think clowns. If you're coming from a clowning background and you're getting into improv, you should be working with both physicality and working on your verbal initiations or your verbal play. That will really help clowns out.
Agreed. There's another part of it which is, this video stream is going to be like 10 hours long at this point, but like...
Oh no.
There is like the part that we were talking a little bit about earlier today, which is like, there's also like this weird social aspect to it, which is like, people don't like doing improv if it can't disappear immediately. People don't like doing improv if there isn't an audience there. So definitely, that's one of the core reasons it feels weird. Like, you do something on video, maybe that's going to be seen by more people than you like. Maybe the show will be bad. All of these things are true in regular improv, but there's always like the pressure valve of like, well, just like, this isn't going to be a big show in the world. With improv like, online, theoretically, like anybody could see it, so like it feels a little bit more pressurized. And you don't even get to hear people laugh in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a really good point earlier about people going and doing improv online can be quite fearful. It can be quite scary to do that. You've got no backup, you've got no physical backup, and you've got no audience. But also, the idea as well, because people that you don't know, or people that don't know you, maybe people that you do know, but that say your heroes, important people that you look up to will be watching the videos as well.
John, heroes are watching
them. They might be watching as well.
And by heroes, I mean the NHS staff.
There we go. We did it. We did our NHS.
We did it. We defeated COVID-19.
Those two boys thought they couldn't do it.
They said we couldn't do it with a webinar about improv, but we did it.
Oh boy, an hour and a half. I love it. We thought
90
we
minutes. Let's call it
minutes.
90 minutes because that feels less indulgent to say.
Really? You don't think oh, I guess so. Yeah. Is it self-indulgent to say an hour and 30 though?
The fact that you go over an hour is like a big thing. You're like, an hour? No, more. 90 doesn't have like a boundary or anything.
I guess that makes sense because I've never really understood when people say my baby is 15 months old. It's like I don't get that. Just say one, right?
It's strange. And like when people say amounts of money like £1,200. I don't like that.
I don't like that either. I think we've got a new stream that we're gonna create soon. Just things that annoy us.
We were talking a little bit about like, I don't think we talked on this, but we talked about it offline, which is like, I think solo improv helps a lot in terms of like doing improv online. Like it's probably something you're more used to if you've done solo improv, which is like, there's nobody else around on stage with you. Like you can feel a little bit pressurized. I don't know. Like I remember a couple of weeks ago, inspired by your own little solo, Harold, I did a solo show online. I was like, I haven't felt scared in improv like this in a while. It was a really fun exercise. I don't know if I'd choose to do it a lot, but like, it was fun to stretch myself in that way. And maybe people just feel like that in terms of like doing any improv online.
Yeah. It was a very good Howard, I remember it. It was very, very good. I'd also say
You talking about you talking about your own Harold?
yeah, of course I am. What other Harold would I be talking about? No, of course
I don't know.
I'm in
Not
your.
my one man movie. That's for sure.
Oh, of course, it was the movie format. Yes, I remember your movie format. It was very, very good. But I would say, yeah, no, I get it though. I get that people would be, you're in your room, you're doing it in front of a camera. It does feel odd. It just feels really, really weird. And it is scary. It is really, really scary. But it's good practice. I always think that doing solo stuff by yourself, whether it be exercises or a full show, it does make you better. It does help you when this is all finished and we get to go back to the horrible dystopian society that will be the future. We will be able to. I think you'll come out of doing solo improv as a much better performer, because the main thing you learn is patience. You learn to be patient with yourself. If
Yeah,
if
shut
it's
up for a second.
is it weird that I knew that was going to happen? I was like, this motherfucker.
We've done improv. We've done improv
point.
before, John. You know what's going to trigger me to do some kind of move, which is like immediately checking on you.
It's usually just me talking.
Yes.
It's not
a lot of my moves are interrupting you, John.
Learning patience is a big thing. Because there will be a moment where you're doing a solo improv scene, and there will be a moment where you're saying something, and then immediately your mind sort of skips a beat, and you think, that was terrible, or I don't know what just happened. And it's really good to just lay in what you've created. And it doesn't matter if it takes 5 seconds. Like 5 seconds seems like hours when you're doing it. It seems like such a long time. But it keeps you centered, it keeps you focused, and also my favorite thing that you learn not to give a shit about the audience. Not in that sense, but like obviously the audience are like the most important thing when you're listening.
I know what you mean. There's definitely like a line you have to like be like, you kind of want to not care all about the audience, but you also want to do a show to meet their expectations of like, this is a show.
I mean, seeing the audience as something scary, like being fearful of the audience.
Yes.
You take that away, and instead you start listening to the audience a little bit more. And that might not happen in a solo show, but you definitely start practicing that for when you do a show in front of an audience.
Agreed. There's also like a couple of things worth pointing out, which is like, the first thing I would say is like, I do think it is good to do, if only because I do think improv is like a learned skill, and like all learned skills, like if you don't do it, it gets rusty. It depends on how much you do improv, but like, if you haven't done improv in like 3 months, you'll be rusty after that, I think. So even if it's weird, do rehearsals of some kind with your team. You don't have to put a video online. Meet on Zoom, do like some scenes. It keeps like the muscles of doing scene work. I mean, it depends how long you're not doing improv, but like 3 months feels like a little bit of a long time. I had another point.
Even when you're
escaped my mind.
I was just going to mention that even if you are jumping on Zoom or Skype with your team, even if it's not for improv, still do it. Still hang out with each other, still talk, because I don't know, that improv flame might come back and you might want to do some stuff. But I think especially we might be the only two people in the same boat about this, but I can't stop. I have to do some improv. I have to do it. Like I can't just stop, even if it's quarantine, or even if there's no one in my house. I have to like jump on Skype and do some stuff with people, or at least do what this stream is all about and just talk about it.
I love long-form improv, particularly the long-form structure of the Herald. So I'm going to do that regardless of the context in which the world is in.
Absolutely. Have we got any other points about quarantine and improv?
this should be obvious, but like, probably a good idea to not mention COVID-19. It's not going to help your scene.
Yeah.
I mean, like, maybe you can make the whole show about it and like do something where you address it, but like, it's such a cheap, easy move. It's probably not going to help.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, try and live in the world that you're creating rather than going for the easy laugh. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, I think we should leave it there, McInnes. That has been a strong hour and 35 minutes, nearly 2 hours. 2 hours, 20 minus 25 minutes.
Perfect. Have you got anything you want to plug, John?
Absolutely. McInnes and I both teach at Bristol Longform Comedy, which is a long-form school in Bristol, UK. If you're in the Bristol area, do come. We've got courses, we've got classes. Once the quarantine is all over, I'm sure we'll be back to normal. But we've on this YouTube channel as well. I do have 2 videos up on how to do solo improv, that stuff that we've just discussed, and doing improv with a scene partner over Skype or Zoom. So and follow the Facebook page as well, and go to bristollongform.com. For blogs. McInnes, myself, and a couple of other instructors, we write blogs of our opinions, so jump on that.
I'll plug too. I feel like I've never been more productive in terms of content than this current crisis, so I seem to be doing live streams every single day. Tomorrow night, Thursday morning technically, I'm doing there's some improv in it. I'm doing a late night show with my friend Philip Roger. It is at 2:00 in the morning, if you want to, and it is late night with the Garfiles, where we are talking about Garfield, but it's like a late night, like US style talk show. I look forward to that. It started with the core idea of wouldn't it be fun to do a very, very late night show? So we kind of expect nobody to come, but you know what? Come along, it'd be funny. What else? Me and you do shows on Monday nights, I think, now. The Belly Boys,
Yeah.
Spectacular, probably featuring guests. And I just did yesterday, my Glasgow team, Couch, are doing like regular Tuesday shows now of their Spotify form, where we get the audience to put songs in a playlist and we do scenes inspired by them. It's a very easy and very fun form. I really enjoy doing it. And the last one we did yesterday, I was really happy with. So come along to that. But more importantly, I am begging for money. So if you want to give me money, go to go to my Twitter. You'll find it there, @libot.com. No, yeah, @libot on Twitter. Or go to ko-fi.com/libot. I'm not going to buy it.
Right, so
I'm done with my begging.
Right, so I've been John Gallagher Portero.
I have been John
McInnes
McInnes. I'm
as
going to
well.
continue being John McInnes.
No, never change, McInnes. And as a final thing, before we say goodbye, Harry Day has left one final question that we will both answer with one word each, and that will finish us off. So Harry Day asks, would you leave each other under the tree? McInnes?
Would I leave you under the tree?
Yeah, that's literally what it says. Would you leave each other under the tree? Would you leave me under the tree?
So it feels like a Christmas tree to me. Maybe not to you, but to me it feels like that. So I would not leave you on the tree. I'd open that present. What about you?
And, well, I, in normal improv fashion, will say yes. And with that, I say we finish the stream, and we hopefully will do this again.
John, without even meaning it, I mean, maybe meaning it, but we used all of our techniques. I made an active choice to be like, it's a Christmas tree. You accept it. We found the premise immediately.
Are we just, you know what? I take back what we say. We're gurus of improv. If you want us to teach for you, we can do that.
Bye.
Bye.